News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. There's your closing bell for this Friday on Wall Street, where oil surged and stocks fell on concerns over inflation and the war in Iran. And we bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is down 91 points. NASDAQ down 361 points. The Dow down 453 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.14%. The 2-year yield at 3.56%. Spot gold is up 1.4%, and Bitcoin is 4.25% lower, near $68,000. Oil prices soared after a report of output cuts in Kuwait because the Strait of Hormuz is nearly shut off. Oil producers are running out of storage. Mike McGlone is a senior commodity strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence.
So this actually benefits U.S. producers. It's the rest of the world, most notably China, and they're kind of bottlenecked by Strait of Hormuz. But there's a pattern there, so for now, that's all that matters. But the bottom line is Strait of Hormuz is closed. If it stays closed, crude oil is strong. If it opens, crude oil is going to collapse.
Bloomberg's Mike McGlone. WTI has topped $91 a barrel, on track for its biggest one-day gain since 2020. It's also on course for its biggest weekly gain in decades. Brent crude is more than $92 a barrel, headed for its biggest daily advance since 2022. Russia has provided Iran with information that could help Tehran strike American warships, aircraft, and other assets in the region. That's according to two officials familiar with U.S. intelligence on the matter, but they caution that the U.S. intelligence has not uncovered that Russia is actually directing Iran with what to do with that information. Still, it is the first indication that Moscow has sought to get involved in the war that the U.S. and Israel launched on Iran a week ago. Bloomberg News has learned Saudi Arabia is engaging with Iran, trying to contain the war in the Mideast. Several European officials tell Bloomberg that Saudi officials have deployed their diplomatic back channels to Iran with greater urgency to de-escalate tensions and prevent the conflict from getting any worse. So far, Iran has shown little inclination to negotiate with the U.S. or Israel. The Labor Department says the economy lost 92,000 jobs last month, and the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.4%. Former Fed economist Claudia Sahm says she's not on recession watch just yet.
Clearly, these numbers from February are not in, checking the box on signs of stabilization in the labor market, right? We're losing jobs. The unemployment rate ticked up. This is not a good sign. This actually sits pretty consistently, especially if you look at the last 3 months, with what we saw all of last year. The U.S. economy last year created almost no jobs on net.
Claudia Sahm is the creator of the recession indicator called the Sahm Rule. She was a guest on Bloomberg Surveillance. San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly says that disappointing February employment report undermines the notion that the U.S. labor market is stabilizing. She says the Fed continues to have risks to both sides of its mandate. Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee says it is possible that policymakers can resume interest rate cuts by the end of this year.
I remain hopeful / expecting that conditions will improve, that we'll start to see some progress on inflation.
Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee on Bloomberg TV. Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack says interest rates could remain on hold for some time, noting that there are two-sided risks to rates, and officials need to be ready to respond, including a jump in oil prices because of the war in Iran. Fed Governor Chris Waller says he does not think the Iran war will have a lasting impact on inflation, even as it is impacting the price at the pump right now.
What you're going to see is a spike in gasoline prices. That's what the American citizens are going to see when they go to the pump. And for us, thinking about policy going forward, it's as unlikely to cause sustained inflation.
Fed Governor Chris Waller says prices should ease as supply chain issues in the Gulf unwind. White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett says the Trump administration has many tools to address the surge in oil prices.
Sometime soon, we're going to have a much more stable Venezuela with high, stable energy output, a much more stable Iran with high and stable energy output.
Hassett says the February jobs report is an outlier. He says bad weather impacted those numbers. Oracle and OpenAI have scrapped plans to expand a flagship AI data center in Texas. Negotiations dragged over financing and OpenAI's changing needs. This creates an opening now for Meta to step in to consider leasing the planned expansion site in Abilene, Texas, from developer Crusoe with NVIDIA. The campus is part of the highly publicized Stargate project, a $100 billion billion AI supercomputer project. Boeing is closing in on a 500 aircraft order for 737 MAX jets to be unveiled when President Trump travels to Beijing for his first state visit to China since 2017. The agreement, if it materializes, would cap years of negotiations between Boeing and China's airlines and end a lengthy order drought from the world's second biggest aviation market. Boeing shares are 4% higher in regular trading. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.